So I think last week we just completed all the availability group scenarios and everything, right? So I know TD, adding a TD database to always on, I can show you later also. That is not a, that's a easy thing. I can do it later. But today I just wanted to complete at least one FCI failover cluster. And if time permits, I will show you one more different types of FCIs that we can do on Azure virtual machines. So how many of you are familiar with the SQL failover clusters? When I say FCI, it is SQL failover clusters. So have you ever done SQL failover clusters? I know a few of them are with little experience. So just wanted to know. SQL failover cluster. We can talk now, no problem. SQL FCI failover clusters.
Vamsi, you mean on-premises?
Yeah, on-prem SQL failover cluster.
Okay.
At least if you are familiar with on-prem, the concept remains the same, guys. There is no difference whatsoever. So only thing is, yeah.
You are going to take the session for configuring on-premise. I'm just asking to that.
I'm not showing it for on-prem. So I'm showing it on Azure VMs. But my question is, at least whether you got any experience with failover clusters on-prem.
Yes, we have.
Okay, so
this I have one concern, Bhaiya. It is right or not, I don't know. Last time we have discussed it, right? When I'm adding replica, it's not adding, Bhaiya, in Azure. Sorry, in on-premise. I disabled firewall also. Okay.
I think I can talk to you. I can see personally then. So what is that? Yeah, failover cluster. So what is the difference between failover cluster and always on availability groups? The major thing is we don't need shared storage in always on, whereas in cluster we need shared storage, right?
Yes.
And the other difference is high availability at the cluster level, instance level. So if something goes for begging at instance level, no problem. The other node will take over the ownership, right? So these are the just few main differences. But I wonder if anyone is using cluster in their environments now, especially with Azure virtual machines on Azure VMs. Do you have any such configuration?
Cluster with AZ still we have in my environment.
Sorry, come again. Cluster with?
Cluster with AZ.
Cluster with AZ.
With AZ. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is, you mean to say FCI SQL failover clusters instances and top of it availability groups. Is that the case?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Fine. So anyone else is using SQL failover clusters on Azure VMs? Because nowadays everyone is going with always on only. So I'm not finding any companies making use of failover clusters on Azure VMs. I'm not saying about on-prem and Azure VMs. Because the usage, I don't know where we can really use always, this failover clusters on Azure virtual machines. Do you have anything that you can share with me? Where can I use failover clusters on Azure virtual machines? The usage. I wanted to know the usage. Arvind. Do you have any usage that you can think about? Because I have many redundancies, right? Redundancy at the VM level. So still, should I go for failover clusters? That is my question.
So one thing I can say is whenever you are using 2012 and where they need MSDTC support, you should go with FCI only because
up to 2016
always
always on will not support MSDTC. Yeah, that is one thing. Anything that forgetting about, I'll keep MSDTC aside. The major benefit that we can discuss with the failover clusters. I wonder, I couldn't find anything. That's the reason I'm asking.
Like when you have huge databases and when you want to spend a huge capacity for 2 servers, then it will cost you much, right?
Yeah,
I'm not sure about Azure.
So individual storage will be there in always on. So I have my storage should be there on node 1, node 2, and how many replicas what I have. So I should have individual storage. So that storage cost will be more. But in always on, sorry, but in failover clusters, I will have shared storage, means only one storage, right? So the cost might come down.
When
So yeah.
when only like just HA purpose, there is no DRs requirement. Just on nano VM level HA, you can use it.
I can
Other
go
than
with the always on only, right? Why I should go for FCI then?
that's what I'm trying to say. Just VM level, not DB level.
Okay, but DB level we don't have. If I go with failover clusters, I don't have high availability for databases.
That's what I'm talking about. Like database level, you don't need to worry about that one. Just
Only
VM
virtual
level.
machines. Okay, VM levels.
Yeah.
So my question is, since we discussed about the fault tolerance, I mean to say fault domains and update domains, availability set, availability zones. So if that is a scenario, even if I place my missions on Azure virtual machines, so I will be protected, right? So why should I go for FCI? Still, that is the question that I am not sure.
Mhm. So
Right?
it's all like a cost Vamsi, like for example, like a RPO, RTO.
Yeah.
So every 99, right? 99.999,
Yeah.
right? So there. So if cost is like you are going to spend more, so you can go for extra features. So your cost is less. I don't want like database level. I will go with backup restore. But
Okay.
VM level, I need a high availability. Then that makes sense. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, I feel that going forward, can we really make use of failover clusters? That is what I am having. So that is the doubt what I have in my mind. Can we really make use of that FCI? That's why I am not focusing much on FCI. Otherwise, I would have shown you something. So I kept it aside just because I didn't find that much useful on Azure VMs, not about on-prem. Okay. So, okay, now let's come back to our.
One more thing, Vamsi.
Yeah.
Generally, when you have more jobs, ETL packages, linked servers, whatever you have in server level objects, where you can make more deployments and changes, I think it's going to be tedious job for always on cluster, always on availability nodes. So it is easy for FCI actually.
Yeah, FCI because we have 2 nodes and each node will do manually, right? Anyways, you have to do there also manually, linked servers and all, right?
No, but FCI only one changes, right? But always on you, how many replicas you have, you have to make sure
Okay.
you are
Yeah.
making
That
that changes.
is, maybe I can think about that. But that's, I am wonder going forward how far this payload cluster we can make use of. So I don't know, like maybe let's see that in action.
Even after always on 2016, we stopped using FCA, to be honest.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying. So after the enhancements, what we are getting with always on, especially if I take 2022, they are providing one more feature with always on, right? The dependencies what we have on master and MSDB. So that is also we are going to cover. I mean to say, Microsoft has covered that, right? So I wonder where can I use really failover cluster? Okay. So I don't have answer for that. So that's why I kept it aside. If you have anything, if you have any such environment, please do share. I think Shankar told me that he has FCI and always on combined together. That is okay. That is okay. Maybe that too. I think in Azure VMs, I don't need that because if I place my
No.
yeah.
Sorry, Vamsi, I forgot. Actually, I didn't understand your question. That's the reason I said on-premises environment.
Okay. So now let's come back to failover clusters. So I will talk about failover cluster this today. And for creation of failover clusters, as you know, we need shared storage, right? That's the main problem with, I mean, not a problem. I need shared storage for SQL failover clusters so that my cluster storage will move independently from one node to another happily if something goes wrong with that node. So all my database files, whatever that are residing inside the storage will get moved automatically. So in the past, when I worked on SQL failover clusters, I worked from 2005. I don't know about 2000. I think I just installed one 2000 cluster. I'm not sure. From 2005, I worked on all the different types of clusters, but I stopped working on clusters from 2014 or from 2016. To be honest, I didn't work on failover clusters at all. I generally got requirements to configure only always on, not the failover clusters. But I'll just would like to go through this document first and how we used to configure the shared storage, right? So I think in 2005 and 2008, when Windows is not having native support for ISCSI, like this, what we are seeing, then we used to have some separate softwares, and we used to install that softwares on our I mean to say Oracle VirtualBox or Hyper-V, and we used to install SQL on top of it for our practices. But from 2012, I guess, I'm not sure, 2012 or 2008, I got the support of ISCSI natively in Windows. So I just used to install this ISCSI target, and I used to follow the series of steps what they have written here, so that I will get my shared storage. So these are the steps that we used to practice when I used to do practice on my virtual machines, right? If anyone has done this, I think many of you might have done the failover clusters using ISCSI. This is the usual way of dealing. I can show you this, but I don't want, because it is already there and it is well known for many. So that's why I wanted to show you something different today. Of course, it is there. So I wanted to discuss about this. Let me go to failover cluster. So mostly I will be following the Microsoft Docs, guys. So it's the only documentation what I have. So I'm just referring the same. Okay, this is the failover cluster, and I have three types of failover clusters. Without using ISCSI, I mean to say without enabling ISCSI, I can create failover clusters in three different ways on Azure virtual machines. If you are doing it on your labs, I mean to say in your Hyper-Vs or VirtualBox or whatever it is, then you can make use of this article for failover clusters. But if I am on Azure VMs, I can take the advantage of these three different types of shared storage. I can share the disks across all the nodes by using any one of these technologies: premium file share, or storage space direct, or Azure Shared Disk. So I wanted to discuss about Azure Shared Disk today, and I can show you the cluster installation using Azure Shared Disk. Any questions here up to this? I know I didn't talk much, but still. Ramesh, Mani, are you there? I don't know who joined. Just Mani is there. Okay. Manjunath. So any questions here before proceeding with Azure Shared Disk?
No.
Okay. So Microsoft, instead of making use of the other technologies like ISCSI, they have come up with three different things: Azure Shared Disk, S2D, and Premium File Share. So I can easily create shared disk in Azure VMs. If I am dealing with shared storage, I can do it very simply if I am on Azure virtual machines. So I will show you how to create Azure Shared Disk. It's very simple, very straightforward. Nothing you can, I mean, you can do it, you can perform your clustering very happily. Unlike where we used to install so many other tools or ISCSIs or coming here and adding so many things I used to do. But these are all things is not required if you make use of Azure Shared Disk. It's very easy. I will show you now. Before showing, I wanted to show you my configuration first. So I have three machines. Let me go to virtual machines and sort by resource group. So this is my resource group, Azure Managed Disks. That is my resource group, and I have domain controller, node 1 and node 2, part of my Azure Managed Disk resource group. Okay, again I'm repeating: domain controller, node 1, node 2. I didn't do anything. I just created the machines and I added the node 1 and node 2 to domain controller. Even SQL is not installed on node 1 and node 2. It's plain vanilla server. Nothing is there. Only mission and nodes are added to domain controller. Okay. Now I need to add shared storage for my clustering, right? So that storage, whatever that I'm going to add, it should be shared between node 1 and node 2 for the SQL failover cluster. So how to add a shared storage using portal or using different types of configurations what we have on Azure virtual machines. It is different, guys. So this configuration is normal. Everyone will talk about this configuration. So the one what I'm showing is something new. Of course, it is there. If you have practiced, it is not that different. But if you are not done, this is something new, at least to learn for. Okay, so let me come to my portal. Okay, I'm going to disks. Okay, so these are the disks what I have, because for every machine I will get two two disks, right? One is C drive and one is D drive. If I open this machine, so I have C drive 126 GB of capacity and D drive temporary of 16 GB. So if you install VM, by default, you will get two disks, one local disk for operating system and another disk for temporary storage. Okay, so these are the disks what I have on my machines currently. Now I am going to create one disk. That disk will be shared across node 1 and node 2. So how to share a disk across node 1 and node 2? That I am going to present you now. So click on create. And I need to select the resource group what I have. So my resource group is Azure Managed Disk. So I will label this as data disk. Okay, my missions are in North Europe. They are on single subnet. Okay, they are in single subnet and they are in North Europe region. So I'm selecting that region. I'm not selecting availability zone or source type because in source type I have different types of storages, but I'm not selecting anything. I'm just going with defaults, because even I didn't explore much about the other options, snapshot, storage blob. So I wanted to discuss these topics when we are dealing with storage. So that's why I'm not touching this. I'm just going with defaults. I wanted to show you something very important. So I will just focus on that part rather than explaining about the other things, because these things I'm going to cover in my upcoming classes. So for the moment, I'm not doing anything. I'm just selecting the resource group, passing the name, and I'm selecting the region. That's it. Here I don't want 1 terabyte. For me, 4 GB or maybe 16 GB. I'll select 16 GB. 16 GB is fine for me. And as I think long time back I discussed something about disk. So I have HDD, SSD, premium SSD like this. So this is just for testing, right? So I can make use of standard HDD for the moment. Okay, because I think if I go with standard HDD, it might ask me 32 GB as the base minimum. Let's give it a try. Yeah, as you see, the starting size for standard HDD is 32 GB. So I don't need even 32. I will go with premium and I will select 8 GB. Any questions here? Of course, I'm not doing anything, something different. It's selecting the disk and changing the size. Okay, so next I'm clicking on encryption. Nothing here. I'm going with the defaults. Networking. No, I'm not going to change anything over here. It's the defaults again. The important part is in advanced. This is the only tab that we should be careful with. Okay, in real time, of course, these things will be done by your Windows team or hosting team, whomever it is. But if you want to practice for yourself and if you want to share a disk across the nodes, not just for clustering, for even for any other purpose, if you want the disk to be shared, the simplest way is create a disk and come here under advanced tab. There is something called as share disk. Okay, so read this. They said allows this disk to be attached to 2 or more virtual machines. Okay, depending on the storage type and disk size. And there is one thing they have mentioned very clearly: when shared disk is enabled, host caching is unavailable. Did I talk something about host caching in my previous classes? Long time back when I started the classes, did I talk something about host caching? I think I did, but just wanted to confirm. Can anyone confirm me that about this host caching for the disk?
Host caching, I think we may not discuss. We have not discussed anything.
Okay,
We did
so
not.
okay, let it be. So I will talk something about host caching. So they are saying that if I use host caching, Azure managed disk will not support host caching. So let's keep this aside about this point. When shared disk is enabled, host caching is unavailable. Okay, so let me paste this in Notepad. Let's keep this aside. So now I should share the disk, right? So it should be yes. So how many shares that I can make use of? So since I have 2 nodes, so 2 machines will share my disk. Maximum shares are 2. If I want more, I have to choose. So as they mentioned, it depends upon the storage type and disk size, right? I selected 16 GB as the storage, disk size, and the storage type what I selected was premium SSD, right? So it depends upon this storage type and disk size. You might have a question like, what if I have 4-node cluster or 5-node cluster, and if I want to share across multiple machines, then you have to increase the storage type. Then you have to increase the disk size, and you have to choose the relevant storage type. Since we are just dealing with 2-node cluster, for me, max 2 shares is fine. If I want to add one more node, I can go ahead and I can select 3 max shares. For the moment, I am just selecting 2 shares here. This is the only thing that you should focus on, nothing else. Any questions on this topic? I'm just going to disk, and I'm creating a disk, and I'm coming to advanced, and I'm saying enable the shared disk option, and I'm setting the max shares. That's it. If we perform this step, we got the disk, and we can straight away perform our SQL installation. Any questions? This is the only thing that you should focus on. No questions? Nothing? Okay, so I'm clicking on review and create. So once we create the shared disk, we are done. So click on create. Do you want me to select 2 disks, or 1 disk is fine at the time of performing failover cluster? You want separate disk for data and separate disk for log, or is it okay to go with 1 disk? Your choice.
It's okay. It's okay.
The concept remains the same. If I want, I will again, I have to go here, and again I have to create one more
It's
disk.
again additional cost, right?
Yeah. So nothing great. So it remains the same. Okay, so data disk, I just labeled it as data disk. So imagine it is both for data and log. Okay, now come back to your machines. Okay, so I will do one thing. First, I will talk about host caching for a second, and I will come back to that. I will add that disk later. So if I come to disk, what are the disk what I have? So this is the only disk what I have, right? One is temporary disk. You can leave about that disk. And I have the OS disk, which is of 126 or 128 GB. So now if I come here, okay, and if I click on create and attach new disk, there is something at the very last saying host caching, right? I have 3 options for host caching. One is none, means no host caching, and the other one is read only. The final one is read write. In real time, for all your SQL servers, whether it is data disk or log disk or NDFs or TempDBs, whatever it is, I don't care. It should be read only. It should be read only. Remember that, guys. Host caching should be read only for SQL Server files, MDF, NDF, or LDF, whatever it is. That is very important. If you are getting any performance issues with Azure VMs, just check this configuration. Host caching should be enabled. If you enable, you will get multiple benefits. I will talk about host caching, but I'm just giving you a hint about the right option that needs to be done for our SQL Server files. I mean to say SQL Server disks. So it should be read only for our SQL Server disk. If host caching is enabled, it should be read only. If not, it will be none by default. Again, I'm repeating, for SQL Server files, my host caching should be read only. It should not be read write at any cost. It should be read only. I will talk about host caching once I'm done with this class. I will try to explain, or when we are dealing with the storage concepts. So at that time, I will explain you in a better manner for host caching. But just for the moment, I'm saying for SQL Server files, it should be read only. Okay, just keep that in your mind. Okay, so now I already created the disk. So I should click on attach the existing disk. Before doing that, let me quickly show you one thing. I'm going to disk. I'm selecting the disk what I've created. So at the moment, if you see this tab managed by, it is empty, right? It is not being managed by any VMs. So once we attach the disk, you will see node 1 and node 2 manages this data disk. So let me go to the node 1 and let me go to disk and click on attach the existing disk and select the disk whatever what you have created. So I'm selecting the data disk. Okay, so if I select this and if I click on save, it will throw an error. Okay, so I will show you what that error is. So straight away it says fail to update the virtual machine node 1 because shared disk with max shares 2 supports only disk caching type as none. I mean to say host caching. So this is the line what they have mentioned. When shared disk is enabled, like in our case, our host caching is unavailable. We cannot make use of host caching. That is the problem. So come here, okay, click on attach, and before attaching, come to host caching and make this as none. You just make this as none, and then you select your disk and click on save. Once you do this action, it will allow you to save, and we are done. As simple as that. But host caching is not there for Azure Shared Disk. That is the only problem. Okay, now since I added node 1, if I come to disks and if I click on data disk, see, now it is saying managed by node 1. If I perform the same step for node 2, it will show node 2 as the owner, one more owner for that data disk. Okay, so click on attach, make this as none, and then select the data disk. That's it, we are done. All our shared storage is ready. Very simple, right? In olden days, I still remember I used to do all this many steps. Many steps are there. ISCSI target, ISCSI client, that, this, various options. But on Azure VMs, it is as simple as that. Any questions here? What we did till now, we just created the disk and attached this data disk to node 1 and node 2. See, if I click on these two VMs, what are those two VMs? Owners are node 1 and node 2 for this data disk. Any questions here? No questions?
MC, can you show me one more glance what you did?
One more time. Okay. So I just created the missions. I didn't do anything on missions, node 1 and node 2 and domain controller, right? So first I came to the disk section and I click on create. So, okay, I will add one more disk for you. So since you're asking, so I will create one more disk. So I'm selecting the resource group and I'm selecting this time I will mention log disk. Okay, log disk, and I'm passing I'm selecting the region. My missions are in North Europe, so I'm selecting the same region and I'm changing the size. For me, I think 4 GB is fine. I don't want more than 4 GB. Okay, so next, don't do anything here. Go to your advanced tab and select this option as yes. So now this disk is being shared by, so this will allow your disk to be shared across the virtual machines. If you don't enable this shared option, you cannot share your disk across the virtual machines. So you have to just make this disk as shareable by clicking on enable share disk as yes. Okay, that's it. So once we are done, my disk is ready and it can be shared across virtual machines. So now log disk I am creating since you asked. It will not take, it will hardly take few seconds. Yeah, we are done. That's it. So once your disk is created, so now go to your log disk. Let me refresh. It will take some time for that disk to appear here. Yeah, it came now. Log disk. If I go here, log disk is not being managed by any nodes. So now I have to go to my cluster nodes and I have to add that disk. Again, go to the disk and select attach disk. As I said, it should be none. Okay, and then select your log disk. So if you get this problem, guys, like I'm not able to see that log disk, right? I did add that log disk, but it is not allowing me to see that log disk. If you get this problem, you have to sign out and sign in back. That is the only solution what I found on the internet. Okay, I'm repeating. I did add log disk here, but it is not appearing here. If that is the case, okay, you have to sign out and sign in back. I searched all the internet, but I didn't find any solution for that. I don't know why. Okay, let's do that. Let's wait for a few seconds otherwise, because this just got created, right? It might take some time. So at least I will refresh. Node 1 disks, attach, none. Yeah, now if you see, it is appearing. Previously it didn't appear. And since I just refreshed the URL, now it is appearing. Okay, just select the disk and click on save. Just wait for it to complete. It will not take much time.
Yeah, thanks Vamsi for showing again.
No problem. Anyways,
See,
because
premium
since yeah,
premium SSD is costly, Vamsi, I think. You
yeah,
can
it
choose other
is.
disk type, na?
It's okay. Like I will just delete the missions after this class. So that's why I
Okay.
opted for premium. And now go to node 2 and perform the same step. Before doing that, if we go to the disk and select log disk, it will show only as one owner managed by node 1. I didn't add to node 2. So once I add that node 2, so this disk will be managed by node 1 and node 2. So if I go to the data disk, since I added data disk for both the machines, so this is being managed by node 1 and node 2. Okay, come back to our home and select your node 2 and just perform the same step. Attach, make this as none and select your log disk. That's it. We are done with the shared storage. So now we can perform our SQL failover clusters. Before performing, I have to copy the software. I think I have 2019 here. I should have done this earlier. Sorry. Yeah.
I have one question.
Yes.
At the time of VM creation, we can create the multiple disks, right? If we create in that way, can we share what we showed like that, or we need to go for default ISCSI?
I didn't get your question at all. Come back. Okay.
No.
Let 1 second.
At
1
the
second.
time when we are creating the VMs, right? We can create multiple disks, right?
Yes, at the time of creation of VMs, we can create multiple disks. That's true. Yeah.
Those can be shared in this way, what you showed.
No. Once you attach the disk, it will be a local disk. Okay. See, I will again come back now. So if I come here, okay, forget about this. I will do one thing for you since you asked. Node 1. Okay. Node 1 is having data disk and log disk. So these disks are being shared across node 1 and node 2, right? If I want only a disk that needs to be added only to node 1, I can come here and I can create a new disk. So that disk, what I add here, it will not be shared with node 2. It will be independent disk only for node 1. So in your question, you are asking like, what if I created the machine with multiple disks and if I wanted to make use of that local disk to act as shared storage? Is that your question?
Yes. Yes.
That we can do. Seriously, we can convert our local disk to shared disk. It is possible, but it can be done with the help of this option, storage space direct. We can do that. I think if I can show you this, but it's very hard for you to understand. So I'm just wondering if I can do this or not. It's up to you guys. So if you think that you can understand or digest this storage space direct concept, I will try to give my best, but it's very hard to understand. So behind the scenes, there are so many things that are related to S2D. There are many protocols, many architectures, so many things that we need to understand to have some knowledge on S2D. So just thinking whether I can show this or not. Okay, let's come back. Oh, I'm done. So you want to exit? Yes. Go to download. So I just downloaded the software and I'll mount here. So I'm ready with my 2019 software. Before creating the 2019 failover clusters, I wanted to show you one thing, guys. We created the disk, right? We created the data and log disk. Since we created the data and log disk, so I have to open my disk management. So it can be done via, I mean to say, I can go to the Windows administrative tools and I can select the, where is that, disk management. Where can I get disk management? I don't know. Disk management, maybe
Just
under
to
computer
open
management.
disk mgmt.ms.
Yeah, that is the shortcut what I use. But for the people who are not familiar with the shortcut, I wanted to show you GUI first.
Okay.
So this is my disk management. I can open like this. Okay, this is one way, but I will never make use of this. So I always tend to use the shortcut. It is disk mgmt.msc, but it is up to you guys. Whatever it is fine. So if you see here, it is now indicating that there are 2 disks that are uninitialized, right? I didn't initialize this disk. This disk I added just now, data disk and log disk. So those 2 disks are now popping up when I open the disk management.msc on node 1. Let me go to node 2. And if I do the same step, disk mgmt.msc, again, I will get the same pop-up, disk 2 and disk 3. Okay. So this is what you will get when you just attach the disk, and if you are not initialized or you didn't make use of those disks, so the initial pop-up will be like this. Again, I need to format this disk to make use of them. If that is the case, I have 2 options, MBR and GPT. I think there is one problem with MBR. It is the old method of I think MBR master boot record. I think max size is 2 terabytes for MBR, if I'm not wrong. So more than that, it doesn't support. I don't know much about MBR and GPT. You have to select GPT for your disk. That's what I can say. Because I'm not very familiar how it works internally with MBR and GPT. Because if I go to internet, I will come to know, but I didn't do that. Just select with the defaults. Okay. So the only thing what I can tell you for the moment is MBR doesn't support more than 2 terabytes of disk. That is what I know. I'm not very sure. Let me check. MBR versus GPT. Yeah. MBR can handle 4 primary partitions and 2 terabytes of HDD space. GPT has no partition limit and it can have 10 partitions if you want. So it is a more advantageous to go with GPT instead of MBR. Okay, so those are the disk types. So you need not worry about those things. Okay, so any questions here up to this? I'll just close off my office laptop. Any questions? If you have, please let me know. Okay, no questions. So I'm just clicking on OK. I'm not doing anything else. I'm just clicking on OK. Again, remember this. I'm just clicking on OK. I'm not allocating. Okay, these are my unallocated disks. So I created one data disk of 8 GB and one another log disk of 4 GB. I am not allocating them. It is still in unallocated state. Okay, I just initialized those disks. I didn't do anything. Okay, this is very important. If you allocate them, then you cannot make use of them as shared storage. It's not possible. If you right click here and if you click on new simple value and if you assign a disk label for it, it will not work. So this should be unallocated. Very, very important. These disks should be unallocated on both the nodes. Let me do the same thing on node 1. Okay, since you have done on node 2, automatically it appeared over here and these are unallocated. It should be like this. Okay. Any questions here? Again, why I'm asking this many times is just to ensure that when you are practicing, don't assign a disk label for this. It should be unallocated. Very, very, very important. It should be unallocated state. Okay, I'm moving forward now. So I need to create a cluster, right? I need to create a cluster. So did I add clustering feature here? I think I did. So let me create a cluster. So question for you guys, since I am on Windows 2019, what is the cluster type that I will get? Will I get the standard cluster or will I get a distributed cluster? If I create the cluster.
Distributed.
By default, it is distributed if I perform this via GUI. If you want IP address for your Windows failover cluster, you have to select that management point network type as singleton. But let's go ahead and let's do DNN and see if we can get any errors. Because if you remember, long time back, I made a statement saying that if you are dealing with failover clusters, DNN will not support failover clusters. That is the statement what I passed. If it is up to 2017, but I don't know if they fixed it on 2019. I will show you that statement again. I know for few of them, it will be daunting. It's okay, guys. I will make you feel comfortable. Just give me a few seconds. Alan Hart distributed network name. See, so there is one article on internet. He's by name Alan Hart, H-I-R-T. I don't know how to spell. So if I misspelled it, sorry. So DNN comes naturally if you install 2019. Okay, but if you are installing failover clusters, FCI stands for failover clusters, it will get failed with this error. Okay, the given key was not present. So that's the caution. I think in my previous classes, I told you very specifically, if you are dealing with FCIs, please check your Windows failover cluster configuration. If it is DNN, definitely you will get this error. But so, okay, he has mentioned with both SQL Server 2017 and 2019, creating a listener when the FCS uses DNN seems to work. Okay, let's give a try with DNN and see if we can get any error. Okay, so I wanted to try this. So that's why I'm going with graphical cluster setup, which means I will get the DNN now. Create cluster and just need to add those two nodes. Node 1, node 2, create the cluster. Okay, I'm not going to run this. And if I don't run this, I will get one error at the time of SQL installation. So wait for that error. Let's give Windows failover cluster, Windows FCI. Next. No. Next.
Vamsi, is this kind of setup cluster on-premise like that, right?
One second, guys. Just hold on. What is that? What I got? Seems like PS2 MFA. Yeah, Cody, come again.
I'm just, it's like similar to configuring cluster in on-premise, it's like that. Is this kind of setup in
Same
Azure?
thing. Same thing. So it is similar to on-prem. Only thing is that shared disk concept, whatever I've shown, it is different. Okay, you will try to create the ISCSI. You will create the ISCSI and you will add the nodes to the ISCSI as targets. You have to do like that. But here, the sharing concept is very easy.
Yes, correct.
Very, very easy, straightforward. 1 second, guys. I couldn't find anything, any performance issues, nothing. Just connect and I'll say, okay, done. Finish. So this is my failover cluster. If you see, I will not get the IP address and it is distributed server name. So this works on the concept of DNN. Okay, that's what I wanted to show. It's done now. So we created the Windows failover cluster. So now it's time to create the SQL failover cluster. Okay, shall I start? Any questions up to here? No questions. Okay, now come to your storage. Since we need shared storage, right? So I have to click on disk. Till now, I didn't do anything with storage with always on, but for clustering, I need shared storage. So I have to create shared storage, obviously. So click on disk. Okay, and I have two disks with me, right? As you can see, here is disk management. Two unallocated disk. One is of 8 GB, another is of 4 GB, I guess. So those two disks are still there. 8 GB and 4 GB. So now come here, go to your cluster, click on disk and click on add disk. Okay, it automatically detected the two disks what I have. Okay, so disk 3 and disk 2. click on OK. Right, this is important, guys. So how to add your cluster disk? So once you create the cluster, go to storage, click on disk and click on add disk. You don't need to do anything. It will automatically select, it will detect those disks and just select the disk. That's it. So we have our cluster disk ready. Any questions? Very, very simple, guys. Very, very simple. Straightforward also. If you have any questions, please break me up now. Otherwise, I'll just move.
Do we need to add something dependency here, Vamsi?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Okay, so now I just need to label them. I have to give some labels, right? So I have to label them as G drive or E drive or F drive, some labels for these two disks. So for that, I have to go here. Okay, click on, I'll just close and open it again. Okay, come down and click on here. And now click on new simple volume. Now you should do this. Okay, after adding the cluster disk, you can what can I say? You can initialization is done. What is the step? What we now call this as? Giving a label for your disk. Now you can do this, but it will throw one error here. It's okay, fine. I'm assigning G drive for data disk and L drive for log disk. So I'm assigning G. Next, make this as data disk, format, finish, done. It will throw an error. Okay, it's okay, fine. The volume was created successfully, but it was not formatted. Retry the format using the format task. It's okay. Let's click on OK. Okay, now since we added these disks to cluster, okay, so that is why we are getting that error. Okay, I'll get the same error here also. Let me get that error again. I'll show you how to overcome that. Simple volume 4 GB and I'll assign L drive for log disk L. Next, log disk, next, finish. It will throw the same error of what we got previously. Okay, so still if I go here and if I click on PC, I'm not able to see my G drive and L drive. It's not appearing. For that to appear, just click this disk. Okay, very important, guys. Click this disk, go to more actions, turn on the maintenance mode. So this disk should be in maintenance mode for us to assign the disk labels for those disks. So I have to go to more actions, turn on the maintenance mode. So now it is under maintenance mode. So in the bracket, if you see the status is in maintenance. Now if I go to my disk management and now if I change the drive letter path, what should I give? G. It's already selected because we already selected as G. Just select the G and then format this. It will work. Okay, data disk. It should be NTFS. File system type should be NTFS. Yes, I did kept that in maintenance mode, right? Okay, I kept, okay. Let me keep the other one also. Questions, nothing. See, now it is getting formatted and it is showing me the G drive. Now if I go to my machine, see the label. This is normal disk, this is cluster disk. This icon shows that this disk is clustered, means that this disk is being shared across the nodes. Similar
Can we
fashion.
convert these drives into mount to disks?
Yes, we can do mount. That is called as cluster shared volumes. We can do that. But I'm showing the normal traditional way.
Yeah, got it.
And once we are done, I can show you that also, no problem. So assign this as L drive and format this drive. Name this as log disk. NTFS again. Okay. Formatting done. So see, I got my shared disk. So what I have done till now, inside the portal, I created the disk. right? I went to disk and I selected 2 disks. I mean to say, I went here and added create and ensured that I selected shared option as yes here, and I attached this disk to node 1 and node 2. So I came to the machines. I didn't label them. I just initialized them. That is very, very, very important, guys. If you straight away initialize and if you assign disk labels like this, it will not, you cannot convert those disks. It's not possible. So just initialize them. Don't do anything else. So once upon creating your cluster, okay, go to your storage, click on disk. It will automatically select your disk. You need not do anything. So it automatically came up for me. So I just selected those disks. Once we are done with adding the disk inside my failover cluster, you go to your disk management. Before going to disk management, just keep your disk in maintenance. Okay, and then label them and partition them. Sorry, format them. Any questions here? Now get those disks back from maintenance mode. I'm removing the maintenance mode now. These are the steps. If we are comfortable with these steps, we are done with clustering. Nothing great. As you can see, if these labels are appearing, G drive and L drive, it's fine. Any questions? Can I proceed with SQL installation then? Since I created that, yeah,
No need to initialize from another node.
it will automatically come. Okay, so if you see here, this PC. So who is the owner for G drive and L drive? Node 1, right? If I go here.
Yes, node 1 only. We created node 1. No? So
yeah, we create on node 1. So if you want, I can move this disk to node 2 and those disks will appear on node 2. Let me show you that since you asked. Cluster disk 1, move the available storage, select to node 2. So node 2 is now the owner for those 2 cluster disks. Now if I go to my node 2 and if I come here, see, I didn't assign any labels here. Automatically it is coming, right? G drive and L drive, it will come. Why it is not appearing L drive? NTFS, okay. Let me open Clue admin. Storage, disks, cluster disk 1, cluster disk 2, okay. Cluster disk 1 is 4 GB, cluster disk 2 is 8 GB. Okay, somehow it didn't took the label. Log disk L drive is not appearing. Okay, let me do that again. I don't know if I made any mistake. 1 second. See, I didn't assign a label, so I have to assign a label for it. Okay, just I will select F drive. Sorry, L drive. That's it. Now it will appear. Okay, so now node 2 is owning those disks, and that is why you are seeing the shared disk on node 2. So this disk will appear only on one node, guys. It cannot be owned by 2 nodes simultaneously. That is the beauty of clustering. I mean to say, you cannot have owners for the disk. Okay, one disk, sorry, one VM can write to the disk at one time. It cannot be owned by 2 VMs at same time. So the ownership will be tied with only one node, not with 2 nodes at same time. As of now, node 2 is the owner. And if I fail over this to node 1, node 1 will own the disk. So if I go to node 1 now, and if I click on computer, this PC, now you will not see any disk here, right? If I move this disk, both disks will appear on node 1. It will vanish from node 2. It will appear on node 1. So let me do on node 1 because I want node 1 to be primary. Okay, done. See, automatically it came on node 1 and it will disappear from node 2. No disk on node 2. Questions? Shall I start the installation then? Okay. So In my previous classes for always on, I was using templates, right? So that's the reason I used to get SQL Server engine analysis, everything pre-configured. But here I don't have anything. This is just a normal virtual machine. I copied the 2019 and I downloaded the software. Now I have to install. Okay, so I think for the people who didn't work on failover cluster, this is not the option that we should select. We should select new SQL Server failover cluster installation. Okay, so this is the option that we should select for failover clusters. You will get one error at the time of rule checks. So I'll show you what that error is and how to overcome that error. So this is developer edition. Yes, my edition is developer. Accept the end user license agreement. I don't want these updates. I can skip this. In the next tab, it will fail.
It may require initial reboot also.
No, it's not about reboot. I'll tell you, once we get that error, I don't think you will get that error in real time, but here I will get. Because I didn't do one basic stuff, so it will throw that error. So did you understand how to create shared disk? That is most important, guys.
Yes, sir.
Okay, see, as expected, as I told you, it failed. So if I click on this, just read the message. The cluster either has not been verified or there are errors for failures in verification report. That is the error what I'm getting. So the rule name is Microsoft Cluster Services Cluster Verification Errors. So what it is saying, the cluster either has not been verified. So as I said, at the time of creation of Windows cluster, I didn't verify the cluster. As long as we don't verify the cluster, this error will come to you naturally. Okay, this will never happen in real time because we'll definitely validate the cluster. Even on always on, even with always on availability groups, it is our responsibility to validate the cluster. Since I didn't do that, I'm getting this error. Okay, if I perform validate cluster, this error will not appear. So if you are practicing yourselves, once you create the cluster, at the very next step, validate the cluster. Or before the creation of the cluster, you can validate itself. So it is up to you. It is your choice. Since I didn't do both of them, I have to do it now. Otherwise, this error will not allow me to move forward. So the next is disabled here. Since that is error, I have to validate now. We can quickly validate. Once we validate that, that error will disappear. I did that intentionally just to show you that error what we will get if you don't do that. In the meanwhile, I'll create one service account. Can we create a failover cluster with the local accounts? Can we run failover clusters with local system account? Is that possible?
I think no.
How about the same question for always on? Can we run our always on availability configuration with the SQL Server service accounts as local system accounts? Is that possible? Interview question. Treat this as an interview question.
No, say it should be domain account on.
So my question again, I'm repeating. For always on, is it mandatory to have local system account? Sorry, domain account for always on and for clusters, both.
Not
For mobile storage, we require domain account.
Yes. So for clustering, we need a domain account. For always on, we this not required. Why?
There is no dependency.
Because internally,
internally,
for failover, these things entire system it is using.
Okay. Can anyone answer this question? I got one answer to my mind straight away, but I am not sure if that is a real answer. Is anyone wanted to try this? Why we need a service account as domain account for clusters? Very difficult question, I believe. Okay, now I'm rerunning since we validated the cluster. So it will pass now. It will allow me to go forward. We are done. We are able to move forward. You can ignore the warnings. It's fine. Oh, I didn't disable the firewall. So let me do this. Anyone wanted to try why I need domain service accounts for clusters? Why not for always on?
Cluster all objects running and with the domain account, right?
So same thing happens for always also, right? All
Yes,
objects.
as you said earlier, up to 2003 requires a domain account. After that, we don't require, if I'm correct one.
Okay, let's see that now. I made firewall off on both the nodes. Okay, done. So now I'm coming back to the installation wizard. I'm clicking on next. So I have to select these options because it's not possible for me to uncheck here. If you see, everything is getting deselected automatically. Okay, so these are tied with each other. So you cannot remove these features. It has to be with those features. You cannot do it manually. So I'm selecting that. And one more thing, should I use shared disk here or it should be local disk here at the time of selecting the instance features?
Canonical, it should be in a local disk.
Why not shared disk?
Because all bootable files placed in the local disk only once. Yeah.
Bootable, so, come again, what? Bootable, what is that?
All root, what we call binary files, it should be placed in local disk only, as per my knowledge.
Okay, why? What if I keep binaries on shared disk?
In shared disks, it will be owned by any one of the nodes only. That's the problem.
Okay, so very important. I think I got this question a couple of times in interviews as well. So if you are selecting these features, this should not be on shared disk. It should be on local disk, guys.
Yes.
Okay, so it should be, the binaries should be there on all the nodes. Whatever the nodes that are participating in the cluster, that binary should hold all the relevant DLLs and EXEs. Okay, so that's the reason we should install these features on local disk, not on shared disk. Since I don't have any other disk, I am going with C drive, but in real time, you have to create this on E drive or F drive, whatever the drive what you have. Okay, don't install your binaries on C drive.
Yes, that's correct.
But again, at the same time, it is not shared disk. I should not use G and L. Okay, so I'm just telling you the difference. Okay, next I'm clicking on next. Default instance, I'm going with default. So my SQL Server virtual name, it's equivalent to my always on listener name. But this is the SQL FCI. So I'm giving the same name. SQL FCI is my virtual server name for my SQL cluster. Click on next. So this is just the name that appears inside our clue admin. So I am just keeping this default. If you want, I can change this. For example, if your application, you can pass the application name here. Imagine my application name is Redmond. Okay, so to identify the different instance names, I can make use of the proper naming convention over here. So I'll just keep this as Redmond, or if you want, I can leave this as is. So it is our choice. So I'm just telling you that we can pass a application name here to identify the cluster. Okay, so that's the reason I'm just passing this Redmond. Okay, I can select both the disk, cluster disk, and 1 and 2. One is data disk and another one is log disk. By default, Azure will always go with DHCP protocol. So uncheck this.
Come back once.
Okay, this tab or the previous tab?
Again, it's showing red color only.
No, it's not red color. It is saying These are the storage that is available.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so this is not an error. Okay, just pass the IP, whatever the IP what you want. What is the IP for this machine? Command IP config 10.0.series. Okay, so I'll make this as 10.0.0.25. Okay, and now this is my question, right? Can I pass local system account here? Can I do this? Will it accept? Any local system account? Let's go with network service. See, it is not allowing me to enter. Again, I will do. Okay, let's wait. Okay, it took. Can I run my SQL Server service account with any local system account for my clusters? That is my question. Even I don't know the right answer, so I would just wanted to know if you have any good answers. Arvind, you want to give a try?
It needs permission to register the CNO. For cluster container, it needs permission, like it needs create computer object permission through domain account. It's a cluster container. So if you use local system account, it cannot create a object CNO in domain controller. It cannot. That's the main reason actually.
But thing is that again, that CNO, FCO, sorry, VCO, virtual computer object or computer named object, that is for Windows cluster. Okay, not for SQL Failover clusters.
The FCI here also we have VNN, right? Virtual network name is there for SQL also.
Listener, when I talk about listener is getting created at domain level, right? So, but again, if I take always on availability groups, it is working fine with local system account also. But my SQL failover clusters will not work. What is the reason? I wanted to know that. I didn't get the proper answer from anyone till now. I'm telling you frankly. But what I understood from my end is I will tell you once I am done with this configuration. So even I'm not sure if that is right or wrong. Okay, so let me remove. So what is that service account what we created? SVC. Redmond SQL SVC. Password. Redmond SQL SVC password. Guys, since we are on 2019, we do have better features now. I think many of you know this, right? Grant, perform, volume, maintenance task. What this is for? Come on. Grant, perform, volume, maintenance task, privilege.
This is for data file 0 initialization, but this is there from 2008. So you can do it from.
No, I mean to say the graphical support at the time of its SQL installation. I'm getting this option from 2019 or 2017, I believe, not on 2008. 2008, I used to go here, gpedit.msc, and I have to select that option, right? If you remember.
Okay, you mean to say in the wizard? Okay,
yeah, wizard. Yeah. So inside the wizard itself, now SQL has given an option to initialize your. This is called as instant file initialization. It's a common interview question again, guys. So if you are performing, if your restores are slow in log shipping, what might be the reason? So there are a couple of questions that revolves around this instant file initialization. So be cautious. It has to be there all the time. It's a good practice. So of course, this is my test machine. I'm ignoring this. Anyways, just like click for your sake. Collation, I'm not changing any collation. I'm going with Windows authentication mode. I don't need class SQL mode. So here I can select G drive for my data files and L drive for my log files. Let's name this as log. Okay, TempDB, again, it will be on shared disk. Again, an interview question. Can we create TempDB on local disks? Master model MSDB will be on my shared disk, but can I create TempDB on local disk? It's
No.
okay. Give a try. It's I mean, there is nothing wrong.
You have to create. You have to.
So as I said, all my system database files should be on shared disk, right? So my question is, since TempDB is a kind of temporary database, will it allow me to create on local disk? Can I do that?
We may not.
Again, remember guys, that feature is there. This is also interview question. I think from 2016 or 2017, I don't know the exact SQL version. We can have our TempDBs on local disk, even at the time of SQL clusters. It is possible. It is possible, but I don't know the exact SQL version. Either it is 2017 or 2016. I'm not sure. So I can make use of my D drive here, but I'm not going to change this. But I'm just letting you know that I can change this and I can place my local. I can make use of local disk for my TempDB files. Okay, it is possible. It is possible, but I don't know the exact version. Again, I got few more tabs here. Max top. We can talk about this max top for entire class. So I'm not touching this, but 2019 has some great features. So at the time of configuration at the wizard itself, you are getting all these options. Memory, you can set the max and min. I don't have anything, so I'm ignoring everything. I'm clicking on next. That's it. We are done. But only thing is, since we opted for DNN for my Windows cluster, I don't know if this gets successfully completed or not. We have to check that. I don't have SSMS here, guys. So let me copy that too. Any questions? Very simple, right? To install clustering on Azure VMs.
One question, like where
you are breaking up completely. Where is my SSMS? SQL software SSMS. So we will be the first of its kind, guys. So we are trying on DNN of 2019. So we don't know if that works or not. Let's wait for it to complete. So for that service account question, right? So my answer is like, okay, let me show you that thing. Service master key failover cluster.
Shankar, can you keep the mute?
It is me. Let me mute myself. Let me unmute myself. And where are we? We're almost there. Done, guys. So our installation is successful. So we can say confidently now that DNN will support 2019. I'm not sure with lower versions. 2017, I think it will fail. So, but on 2019 SQL installation, it is happily getting installed. So we can pass this statement boldly now to the outside world. Did you get my point?
Some confusion.
Yes, please fire the questions. I'm there to clear the confusions, not to keep with you. Fire that question. Hello. Someone said.
Not even getting the question. But something
Okay.
clumsy.
Okay. Manju, yourself. Okay. So Manju, thing is that so we created our Windows failover cluster with DNN. Is that okay?
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah. And now we are creating SQL failover cluster. So previously, I told you specifically that if you are creating failover clusters, I want you just to cross verify your Windows failover cluster, whether it is DNN or the traditional FCI. I mean to say IP associated with it, right? So if you are creating your Windows cluster, if you are creating your Windows cluster with DNNs, and if you are installing SQL failover cluster, it will fail. So that is the screenshot what they are referring. Let me go to the official documentation page. I'll show you that. Okay, it is bottom. I think even in bottom, I'll get that somewhere. Maybe here. 1 second, Manju. I'll make you understand. 1 second. See, read this line. If the version of the operating system is Windows 2019 and the Windows cluster was created using the distributed network name, then the failover cluster installation for SQL Server 2017 and below will fail with this error. Did you get this line? This is what I'm talking about. My version of Windows operating system is 2019, right? As of now, I'm on 2019 and I created my Windows cluster with DNN, but my failover cluster installation is for 2019. I am not on 2017 or on any version less than 2017. Since I am on 2019, we need not worry about this error. If I am installing 2017, definitely my installation would have failed with this error. The given key was not present in the directory. It would have definitely failed. And we have to create some steps to overcome that error. These are the steps what he has mentioned. So these 4 steps needs to be done. Luckily, since we installed Windows 2019 and SQL 2019, we didn't get this error. So that's what I'm talking about. I think it's okay now, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So now let's move to node 2 and just perform the add node here. What is that? Node 1, right? I'm copying the software, guys, nothing else. Ooh, it should be in my downloads, not here. Can I continue tomorrow? Since we performed one node installation, I should add that node for it to be complete. I'll just wait for a few minutes. I will quickly run through. I don't have the software here on, not on domain controller. It should be on node 1. Downloads. Yes, let me copy this. It's just clicking on add node. That's it. Nothing else. Oh, 4 minutes.
Meanwhile, you can install the SSMS.
I'll keep that ready. Yeah, that's true. SSMS. It will take so much time for SSMS. Better I'll cancel and I'll launch this and I'll download. Net is super fast than this. Download the media, download. Now, if you see, this is how it looks, guys. So under failover cluster, this is my SQL FCI. This is equivalent to your always on listener. And you have the name and IP for my failover cluster virtual server name. This is my SQL server and agent. And now can I ask you a couple of questions? So SQL server, what are the dependencies for my SQL server? I think this is the interview question what I got few years back. So if I click on this, so just go to your dependencies for player clusters and be very cautious because few questions will land on this topic. Okay, so my SQL is dependent on failover cluster virtual server name and my disks. Okay, and if you want, we can easily watch with what is the diagram. I'll get some diagram.
It's automatically added, right?
Yes, automatically. Dependency diagram, where can I get that?
Yeah, you can get it from dependency report from the cluster.
Cluster dependency report from cluster.
Dependency report roles. Can you click the roles from there? I think you can see that.
Somewhere we used to get a dependency report,
yes,
right?
Yes.
I forgot where.
Can you click the resource name and right click and get that?
Here, okay.
I think dependency report. I think here only. Where?
Yeah, more actions.
Yeah.
Show dependency report. That's true. So just keep this diagram.
Only one arithmetic operator works with the cluster and operator for entire cluster.
Entire cluster. So this is the diagram, guys. So SQL Server is dependent on virtual server name, and virtual server name is dependent on IP address. So this is the end operator. SQL Server is depending on three things.
Yes,
so disk, I mean the data disk, log disk, network name. And the network name is dependent on IP address. So if something happens to IP address, everything will be moved to offline state. So this is the diagram. So this is very important. I think few questions will definitely revolve around this dependency report. I've seen that in the past, but I'm not sure if it is happening now. Downloads. We are done with the download. Let's quickly do add node. Mount. Setup. Run as administrator and click on add node. Come on. Developer, same rules. So it'll take just couple of minutes. It's the only thing. Rest all is fine. Come on, come on, come on. Yeah. Same rules, whatever that happens on node 1 will happen on node 2 as well. So no errors this time since we already bypassed that cluster validation. So it is showing that already my SQL got installed on node 1. So it is showing owner nodes as node 1. Now we are adding node 2 as one more owner for my SQL Server instance. Okay, so click on next. Here you need not pass anything. Everything will be pre-populated. Only thing is you have to provide password to our service accounts. That's it. See, it automatically recognized the failover cluster IP. So I'm just moving ahead. Just need to pass the passwords on the second node. That's it. Once we are done, we are done with cluster installation. So we can move ahead. Grant next. Done. That's it, guys. So it will take some time. So I will close off here. And tomorrow we'll create some databases and we'll perform failover, failbacks. And if you have any questions with clustering, so let me know. Tomorrow I will work on those questions.
Just small question here.
Yeah.
So can we add analysis services onto the cluster?
Yes, yes. Analysis is clustered aware resource.
Cluster aware resources. So
Yeah.
is that a normal process, right? So when you go ahead and install SS, can you select the SSAs? It automatically get.
Yes, yes.
Okay, fine.
It's the same. Reporting is not cluster aware. SSAS is not cluster aware. Only DB engine and analysis.
Okay, fine. So okay.
It will take max 1 or 2 minutes. So if you want, I will wait. Or else I will close it off. Let's wait for 1 minute. SSMS will take so much time. So I didn't get the answer for my question. So I think this is the answer, guys. So I'm not very sure, but still I believe this might be the case. The answer lies with service master key for clustering, not for always on. I'm not sure. It's just my wild guess. Even I might be wrong. There are a couple of things here for service master key. So service master key is encrypted using the local mission key. Local mission key means only for that particular node. What happens if it gets failed over to another node? Then that local mission key and this local mission key will definitely be differing, right? So it has to rely on some other technique. So that some other technique is service account. I will discuss this tomorrow because we already reached the class timings, end of the timing. So I don't want to take much time. I feel this is the answer, but I'm not sure. Arvind said about CNO and VCO, but still, I guess that is not sure.
That's pretty good if you want. I'm just adding a schedule to it.
Bye, MC.
Okay, I'm closing this. So let's catch this tomorrow.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Bye.